Welcome to Climate Quickies, bite-sized nuggets of climate goodness from our TEDxLondon experts in under 5 minutes.
In this week's Climate Curious, recorded live at TED Countdown, we're taking stock of and celebrating climate's biggest success story to date. It's solar power. Today, solar panels are cheaper than ever before. And this means that countries like Pakistan have been able to lower their overall coal power consumption by 9%, simply because solar is just so much cheaper. And by 2030, whenever the sun's out and you flip a light switch, power should hopefully be 100% free. On how solar panels mean we can continue our way of life without changing much at all, here's the solar oracle herself, Bloomberg's solar analyst, Jenny Chase. Stay curious.
I think these days I sometimes find myself being a bit on the skeptical side because what I'm trying to be is realistic. 20 years ago, I thought that solar might one day be 1% of global electricity production. And I was quite pleased to be part of that. 1% is something, right? And now it's about 6% and rising steadily. And it's really exciting. And I'm not quite sure everyone realizes how cheap solar has got and how much renewables is making a difference to the carbon emissions of power generation in rich and, in fact, poor countries. Solar panels are pretty cheap. Like, one of the key things about my talk is that solar panels here in Europe are more or less the same price as ordinary fencing panels. So if you're going to build a fence that is even like vaguely facing the sun and you can be bothered to trim it occasionally to keep the vegetation off, you probably may as well put solar panels up. And they are really cheap. I mean, I think by 2030, we are going to have to totally restructure the way we pay for power because whenever the sun is out, power is going to be free. However, the thing about solar is it does only generate in a fairly narrow window of hours, even in equatorial climates that don't have big seasonal differences. And somewhere like here in Brussels, there is going to be a huge issue if we run happily all summer on solar and batteries, because we're going to need something different in winter. Batteries are great for smoothing out daily fluctuations in power generation. They're really great for storing daytime solar power to the evening, but they are not a solution for storing solar power for the winter. And that's why, as a solar analyst, one thing I say a lot is we need to be building more wind. First of all, solar panels are really cheap. And they are, in fact, so cheap that they're not just for rich people anymore. So I'm showing some very interesting data from Pakistan, which suggests that one of the reasons why on-grid power generation in Pakistan appears to have fallen 9% in 2023 is that loads of people just bought solar panels and stuck them on their roofs. I mean, this is a complicated story, and it's not quite sure how it's going to end up because Pakistan has a 50 gigawatt, largely coal-fired power grid. And what happens when the electricity demand drops 9% because the best customers of the power grid have gone solar is that the power prices have to be raised for everyone else to meet. So it's a sort of vicious death. I'm not sure there are any bad guys in this situation. I don't think a country that is as poor as Pakistan can truly be said to have bad guys. No. I don't think that climate change is primarily caused by bad guys. It is caused by the fact that it's terribly convenient to dig stuff up, burn it, and use it to power our way of life. And the great thing about solar power is that we can probably continue much of our way of life without changing all of that, at least in some places. I think that the climate movement as a whole needs to understand that technology is one of the great forces for change. I mean, successful and determined policy got solar through the period when it was expensive. I am deeply grateful to Germany for paying subsidies to solar for 20 years, which helped the world solar industry ramp up. Solar has usually been subsidized for most of the last 50 years that commercial solar has existed. The US had some subsidies in the 1980s, and then Japan had a period, and the really big one was Germany in 2004 when it opened up its feed-in tariff regime. And what Germany did for the first time was say, we're going to pay every solar power plant a price of over €400 a megawatt hour, which is a lot of money, per a unit generated for the next 20 years. And that caused a massive boom in Germany, which basically caused the solar industry to start expanding. And with the experience of making all these solar panels for Germany, that allowed companies to figure out the technology, push down the prices, get that experience, which has made it work. And it has worked. And I mean, there's a lot of discussion about whether this was a smart move by Germany. I mean, for example, if I'd been in charge, I would probably have done it to phase out the coal before the nuclear. But there is no doubt that one of the things that Germany achieved with this was make solar panels cheap enough for Pakistan. Solar panels are so cheap that they'll end up on most houses anyway. If I was trying to push a solution, I would say that we need to build more grid, because one of the big problems in a world that's largely powered by renewables is going to be that sometimes the wind blows in one place, sometimes it blows in another. The sun shines sometimes on one region and not the other. And it's going to be hugely helpful to have really good transmission to make sure that electricity can get around. So we need to build more grid. So the UK currently gets about 5% of its electricity from solar, but that's nearly all in the summer. Solar is not useless for powering heat pumps, because you also have the heat pumps working in spring and in autumn. But it's not that great in the winter. So I'm not sure that pushing the accelerator on solar in the UK is actually going to help. I would accelerate wind, heat pumps, grid in the UK. There are lots of areas of the economy that we still need to decarbonise, which are going to be much harder than power production. So with solar, appreciate that technology gives us options that we've never had before. And this is amazing. It doesn't mean that climate change is solved, but it does mean that we have a powerful tool in the toolbox that we did not have before.
Thanks for listening to this quickie.
This episode was created by our superstar podcast team at TEDxLondon. Until next time,
Stay curious.